Orand and Marchand, they knew Brandon Thurston was coming on Wednesday, so they delayed it a day to bring Nick Khan on. So we have our big get with Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics joining us. Brandon, you mentioned the predictions, and this is another Nick Khan staple, is turning things around onto the hosts, where he asked them to predict what the WWE rate increase would be. And you had, as I believe, Marchand predicting a 2x increase, and John Oran taking the over on that, thinking they go above 2x. And certainly those are two people whose opinions you would put stock in.
Yeah, that's above the consensus of what I think is baked into the stock, which is somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8x. I think 1.5, 1.8x is about right. I have yet to see a live sports rights deal in the U.S. that has been a downgrade, based on the number of games or the number of hours that are being provided. If WWE gets a flat, deal, or gets a downgrade, that would be the first one that I'm aware of in I don't know how long. And all the research and looking through articles and putting the spreadsheets together to look at, okay, how much of an upgrade did UFC get, the NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB? There's an MLB deal, their current deal, I think it's with ESPN, that was a downgrade, but it was for fewer games. So I don't know when the live sports right bubble is going to burst. I heard it was going to burst in 2018. People probably prophesized it was going to burst in 2014, but not immediately. And maybe this, I'm still pretty confident that there'll be upgrades here for WWE. AEW is another subject, but I think we may be on the horizon of those values finally plateauing if streaming cannot provide really strong profits like the cable industry has for so long. That is a new and different problem that is ahead, that I don't know how it's going to be resolved, but I also don't get the impression that these media companies are going to let go of their most valuable properties, which is live sports.
We can end off this because it was also noted with a lot of their television partners in town this weekend for WrestleMania that they would start the negotiating process, that it's kind of the opening bids, I guess, for the right of first refusal. And it's very tricky if you're a Comcast or a Fox going into this, that you're starting this negotiating process, but you also have this potential sale looming over. Like, who are we even bidding for that we could be in business with? I think that makes it a little tough to put down like a firm amount of entering a potential like 5+ year deal, as long as the sale talk is existing.
Yeah, I think the big fear would be like if W gets completely bought by the Saudis, and you've already, I don't know, what's going to happen first is probably there has to be a clear answer on company transaction before there is a TV deal, I would think, because if you're NBCU, you don't want to make a deal, I suppose, until you know who you're making a deal with. So I think that's sensible, and that's how it will go down. Because you don't want to have rights to Raw and then all of a sudden find out that the Saudis own it, and maybe that comes with some bad press. But yet on the other hand, I don't have this hope that there's going to be a moral stand that's going to be taken, but say by the viewers. If it's not like I believe that a Saudi-owned WWE is going to correlate to lower viewership. I think what will somewhat correlate to lower viewership is if Vince McMahon takes over control of creative, and Paul Levesque is out, and the content is weaker. But I don't have this belief that people beyond, people like us who talk about this on podcasts and fans who listen to us are going to disengage with WWE because of their political ownership.
As Paul Levesque told you in Montreal, depends who buys it.
Yes.
Depends who buys it. I found that to be a really interesting answer from Paul Levesque that was completely a reactionary one. Like, that was the first thing that came to his mind when you asked him that. It's like, yeah, we can
that.
Certainly...
Is that him saying, I'm okay with a buyer who is willing to keep me in my position and not put Vince back in my position?
Yeah, many ways you can read it, but it's there's a lot of interesting players and what a potential sale means, but Paul Levesque is right at the front of that line. I think he is someone that, as more and more of these, he is getting, and rightfully so, credit for the run that this company is on, and a lot of it is being attributed to the creative direction of the company, and that's a win for him, not just in the wrestling world, but as well, I think, outside, that you do understand that this is the head of creative, and even if you don't understand wrestling, realizing that this is popularity that is being spurred on by this creative direction.
Yeah, and to be clear, like, I don't believe that Paul Levesque is necessarily like the mastermind behind the Bloodline storyline. I would guess that has a lot to do with Paul Heyman and maybe Roman Reigns and other people who are, the talent that's involved in that. But it's at least Paul Levesque approving of everything and allowing it to happen, and allowing things to happen that Vince McMahon would probably not allow to happen as freely if he were in that role. I think the big question is, once a TV deal is done, probably in the spring, does Vince try to make a more full comeback into creative? I think there's a good reason to try to stay out of it right now, to not negatively impact the company transaction negotiations that may be happening, the TV deal renewal negotiations that may be happening. But once all of that stuff is written and agreed to, it's probably safer then for him to try to make a fuller comeback. So by the summer, is what I've said before, is by the summer, maybe he's back in creative if those deals are done, because all those deals are out of the way and he can't negatively impact them. So that's my suspicion and my wait date.